Hey everybody, Alex Miller at Capnion here. Happy Friday morning. I've read in the news that the FTC is opening a probe into OpenAI maker of ChatGPT, and I thought I should weigh in because very relevant to a lot of the broader themes I've been discussing, including getting a little bit into the weeds of prompt engineering. I'm going to give some, you might say, political backdrop, talk about what's new and what's not new in this. And then I think what's new is that the issue of maybe it's lying on people has come up. And that's an important issue I think we could elaborate on a bit. So, right now it's a relative nothing burger in that the FTC is opening a pretty broad probe into OpenAI's business practices around ChatGPT. I will discuss more in a second. I think the marquee casus belli here is that these LLMs hallucinate, and they might be saying nasty stuff about people, and they're ruining their reputation. I'm not quite sure why that's the marquee thing here, but it is a reasonable thing to worry about. But they're also explicitly raising issues of data privacy, cybersecurity. Of course, OpenAI's already had a breach, didn't waste any time. I think here it's interesting to note, and I even want to say I am not the absolute apex predator expert here. There have been a lot of lawsuits, and this is a regulator. So that's a different kind of animal breathing down your neck. I should reiterate, if you're an executive or you're a technical person evaluating this along similar lines, if you want to use this thing at a business, you just got to think here of, okay, if we use ChatGPT at our business, we're kind of in bed with OpenAI now. And conceivably, in some way, if they're a total mess of misery and chaos that could leak over to us, the most tangible thing that could happen, and this happened in Italy, is they get shut down in some way and you don't have an LLM to use all of a sudden. And this can come from a regulator too. They could be in trouble with a regulator, you could be in trouble with a lawsuit. I think just observing some different historical behavior, regulators are always a little bit more political. So you can see Lina Khan feels like she's here to be active and do something about big tech, which I think a whole lot of Americans in slightly different ways want to see happen right now. And then if you're living in a hailstorm of lawsuits, that's usually going to attract the attention of a regulator. And that where there's smoke, there's fire, and people getting a government paycheck try to look busy at the appropriate time. This is not to say the probe is unfounded. I think just the probe is about this and that and the other thing and everything, and just analyzing timing a little bit. I've talked a lot, other people have talked a lot on this platform and elsewhere about large language models hallucinating. They do say weird stuff. I think really a kind of unsung technical accomplishment is that OpenAI actually did quite a good job at regulating the crazy stuff ChatGPT wouldn't say. And I can say personally, I've experimented a lot if I can get to say bad stuff about famous people. So Peter Thiel, for example, was in the group of people that started OpenAI. I have to this day failed to get it to say anything bad about him. Other people will say bad things. I don't necessarily, he's not a bad guy. He's a test case. But, on this journey, I did ask it, are you allowed to say bad things about tech bigwigs? And it said a whole bunch of stuff about Bill Gates' affairs and these kinds of things. So it has this pretty complicated mode of, it really is designed not to slander people, and it's really trying. But it's certainly not flawless. So this concern that it could be pillaring somebody's reputation out there, I'm not gonna like. Once again, I'm not. I don't know why it's the marquee FTC complaint. I hadn't heard anything like that, but very plausible and something to think about. So to cap it all up, this is a kind of interesting nothing burger that reminds us of two pretty useful things. One is that OpenAI's got a lot of weird stuff going on, and that's something to think about. That's a very legitimate thing to be reminded of. And then second, LLMs spout crazy bullshit that could get you in a lot of trouble, potentially, depending on who you are and what you want to use the thing for. That's also a very legitimate thing to worry about. And this story, these two narratives are starting to coalesce. And I guess meta advice, I have so many stories for you to watch making these videos about managing the risk of adopting these things. And it's a meta lesson in itself. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting.